Today, we're diving into creativity, but we're not just talking about a random spark of genius. We're going to look at it as a force that can heal, that can teach, that can build entire worlds, and yeah, even topple empires. Let's get into it.
So here's a weird one for you. What do a rebellious crayon and a bankrupt media empire have in common? I know, it sounds like the beginning of a really bad joke, but the answer, believe it or not, tells us something incredibly important about what creativity really is. Because this is a story about the power of creativity, for sure, but it's also about its price. We're going to see how it can be a kind of personal medicine, a language for our feelings, a vision for society, and a very, very risky corporate asset. Okay, let's start small on a really personal level. Let's look at how the simple act of creating something, anything, can actually be a powerful tool for your own well-being. Think about it. How can a simple little doodle actually help with anxiety? You've probably done it, right? Just scribbling in the margins of a notebook during a meeting or a class. Well, it turns out there's a real, actual therapeutic practice behind that impulse, and it's something that can help us manage stress. It's called mindfulness-based art therapy, or MBBA for short. And the secret sauce here is that it's all about the process, not the final product. You focus on the feeling of the pen on the paper, the way the colors mix. It just lowers the stakes completely. All that pressure to make good art just vanishes. You're just making something. No judgment allowed. And getting started is surprisingly simple. You just find a quiet space, take a few deep breaths to get centered, then you just kind of acknowledge whatever you're feeling at that moment. You grab some materials, anything really, and just play, no goal in mind. And then you just notice. You notice how the process itself made you feel. That's it. That's the medicine right there. So once we start using creativity to understand ourselves, we can then use it to communicate how we're feeling to other people. And sometimes, all you really need is the right color. So there's this amazing kids book, The Day the Crayons Quit. And in it, every crayon writes a letter to their owner, basically complaining about their job. But in doing so, they translate their function into this whole vocabulary of feelings. Red crayon is just wiped out from coloring fire engines and Santas all year. Gray is exhausted from giant things like elephants. And poor white crayon feels totally empty and invisible. But here's the thing, it's not just a cute story, it's a tool. It gives kids, and let's be honest, adults too, a whole new language to talk about really complex emotions. It teaches you that even a pink crayon can feel neglected, which, when you think about it, is a pretty profound lesson in empathy. All right, now let's zoom out. We've gone from the personal, and now let's look at the societal. What happens when an entire world just stops valuing creativity, when it loses its imagination? I love this quote from the author and illustrator Sean Tan. He says that words and images are like the two opposite ends of a battery. The art itself isn't the whole thing. It needs your imagination to come in and complete the circuit. Without your participation, it's just a dead battery. It doesn't do anything. And this is what a world with a dead battery looks like. In his story, The Lost Thing, Tan shows us this bleak, gray world that's obsessed with facts and rules and efficiency. And he contrasts it with this vibrant, colorful, whimsical utopia where all the creative, lost things go. It's such a powerful visual of what we stand to lose. In the story, there's this place called the Federal Department of Odds and Ends, and it is the perfect symbol for how our own systems can sometimes treat creativity, as something inconvenient that needs to be tidied up, put in a box, and forgotten. A place where anything that doesn't quite fit just gets filed away. But what happens when creativity isn't just filed away? What if, instead, it gets captured, scaled up, and turned into the ultimate corporate product? Well, that brings us to a bit of a cautionary tale. So let's talk about Vice Media. This timeline shows its absolutely dizzying journey. It starts in the 90s as this tiny, gritty counterculture magazine in Montreal. Then it explodes into a digital media giant, gets famous for its edgy, immersionist journalism. And at its absolute peak, it was valued at almost $6 billion. And then, boom, in 2023, the whole thing comes crashing down into bankruptcy. After all that, when the dust finally settled, the company was bought for just $350 million. I mean, to put that in perspective, that is a staggering 94% drop from its peak. It's one of the most dramatic corporate collapses in modern media history. So what on earth happened? Well,
It seems like the very creativity that made Vice so cool also became its curse. This relentless pressure to manufacture edginess, but on a massive global scale. It led to completely unsustainable finances and, maybe even more importantly, a deeply toxic work culture that was the exact opposite of the rebellious creative values it was selling to the world. So, after this whole journey, from a single crayon all the way to a fallen media giant, where does that leave us? Let's try to pull all these threads together. We've seen that creativity can be a bunch of really different things, right? It can be a quiet, internal tool for our own mental health. It can be a language we use to connect with each other. It can be a grand artistic vision that challenges everything. And it can be a commercial asset worth billions of dollars. It's so clear that this is one of the most powerful forces we have. It shapes our inner lives and our outer world, from our own well-being to the entire economy. So I guess the final question is, are we giving it the right kind of space to grow? In our schools, in our jobs, even in our own heads, are we treating it like a weed that needs to be managed, or are we treating it like the precious resource it is and nurturing it? Are we giving creativity the room it needs to really, truly flourish?